Alright, so I'm back here with another video, and it finally happened. The thing that I've been worried about since I got my Gladius ROV, I took it out into the Perth Hills and took it swimming in a billabong out there, a little pond, and I finally got it hung up on a branch under the water. I had been swimming around for about 30 or 40 minutes with no issues. There were a lot of branches and debris and rocks and things like that under the water, and I was trying to be careful of them, but I guess I wasn't careful enough, because about 30 minutes in I noticed that I had zero forward momentum, and I wasn't really going anywhere. I turned the drone around and went back to have a look and found that I'd had the tether tangled up pretty badly around a stick, a branch that was just under the water. It wasn't too bad in the beginning. I did use the ROV to try to maneuver it around in the water to free it up, but I actually made it worse doing that. It got a hell of a lot worse before it got better. In fact, I don't even think I could have tied a knot that good if I was trying to. But certainly trying to untie that knot with a submersible in a flowing body of water was actually incredibly frustrating. I kind of understand how an elephant might feel trying to untie a rope with its trunk. It can see the problem and it can understand the problem. It just doesn't have the thumbs, you know. So I spent about 20 minutes with the drone in the water, trying to suss out how it was tangled and how I might be able to untangle it. It was made a little bit tricky because the water was at its height, at its maximum height at that point, and the little creek that runs through the billabong was flowing at the time, and the point at which I'd gotten the drone stuck was directly in the current, so it was very difficult for me to hold the drone steady and take a good look at the knot that I had tied with the current pushing the drone around in the water. So that was a bit tricky. I spent about 20 minutes trying to free the drone, and eventually I decided it's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. So I turned the drone off for a bit, put my phone down, and tried to get closer to the snag to see what the deal was. I waded into the water a bit, up to about my waist. I had a walking stick there as well, but I was poking into the water and found that it was way too deep to stand. In fact, it was probably about 2 or 3 meters deep at the point where I would have to reach the snag. And being that I was out in the middle of the bush, there was no one else with me. Wasn't a terribly dangerous bit of water, but you know, anything can happen. I thought, well, rather than try to swim for it, I might just keep using the drone to see if I can untangle it. You know, I might make the tangle worse, but you know, so what? But I would still be in the same position anyway, so you know, whatever. So I thought I would just keep using the drone to try to untangle the knot until basically the battery went flat, at which point I'd explore other options. Worst case scenario, I figured that if I really decided I didn't want to go swimming for it, then I would just go home and fetch my kayak, drag it out into the bush. That would have been a nightmare. And set it in the water and use that as a platform from which I can untangle the tether. But as luck would have it, I spent a good amount of time staring at the knot underwater, trying to figure out how I can undo it. I took the line that was leading from the snag up to the buoy, and I pulled it nice and tight so that it wasn't wafting around in the water, and I could easily tell which part of the line I had to go over or under, or what kind of maneuver I had to make. So after about 20 or 30 minutes more, I finally managed to get the knot that I had tied undone, and I got the Gladius free, and I was able to swim it back to shore. So no harm done, really. Now, like I said at the start of the video, This is something I've been dreading since I got the Gladius. It's never happened before, but yeah, there's a first time for everything. Now that I've been through that, I can think of a few things that might be useful if this were to happen again, or if this were to happen to someone else. First of all, don't panic. Don't jump in the water and go to swim to free the drone, because it's not really worth taking that kind of risk until that is the only option you've got left. Check the battery on the drone. I had plenty left. I had about 55% left on the drone, and by the time I got the knot untangled, I had about 25% left. So I only used about a quarter of the battery trying to free it from the snag, but that was still much more than I would have liked. Don't pull on the tether too much. I did try that at first, thinking maybe it's not a very heavy branch, but it didn't go anywhere. So I thought best to keep trying before I start pulling on the tether, possibly snap it and make the whole problem worse. Yeah, just taking it easy, calmly, trying to use the camera to inspect the knot. I was kind of lucky because the point at which it had gotten snagged was I had about 4 or 5 meters of tether between the snag and the drone, so I had plenty of room to maneuver and poke around and get a good look at what I had done so that I could effectively untangle it. The other thing that I think I might do the next time I take the drone out is take a length of heavy line, rope, and possibly a grappling hook type thing, so that if I do get the drone caught on an underwater branch or something to that effect, I can throw the line in with the hook, hopefully snag the branch and snap it off, and then not worry about damaging the drone or the tether by just bringing the whole snag back to shore and untangling it there. So that'll probably go in my backpack next time I take the drone out, is a nice length of strong rope and a grappling hook. Thankfully for me, the tangle was fairly shallow. It was only about 10 or 15 centimeters below the water. If it had been any deeper, then I would have had a harder time untangling it, because I'd be going purely by what I see on the screen, rather than being able to look at the screen and also what the drone is doing in the water with direct visual contact with it. So that was quite fortunate. Yeah, I don't really know what you can do to avoid these kinds of things coming up, other than avoiding branches and snags altogether. But let's face it, pretty much any body of water that you put the drone into is going to have those kinds of snags in it. So this is just a risk that you'll always have to take. I have one of the earlier Gladius drones as well, so it has a fixed tether. I know that the most recent release of the Gladius has a detachable tether, so that might mitigate some of these kinds of issues if you can either swim out, or hopefully rather paddle out on a kayak or a small boat to the drone and detach it, recover it, and then worry about the tether just by itself. At least then you will have recovered the drone. So this story has a bit of a happy ending. I was able to recover the Gladius without getting too wet, without having to swim for it, and without draining the battery completely and making a mess of things there. And there's every chance that this is going to happen again. In fact, it's likely that this kind of thing might happen again, but that's the name of the game, I suppose. Hopefully the next time it happens, I'll also be able to free it up, but we will see. Anyway, that was an interesting learning experience for me, and I hope that perhaps if you're operating a Gladius, you can find this a helpful learning experience as well. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.